Today is April 11th, 2019, and Sony's new firmware update, Firmware 3.0, was just released for the Sony A7 III and A7R III. This new update features two big features: real-time eye autofocus that can track animals now, and what we're here to talk about is a second feature, the software intervalometer. My name is David Zhao, and today I'm going to show you how to use this new built-in intervalometer to capture a time lapse, like this one. First, if you're going to be using this feature for time-lapsing a lot like I plan on doing, let's assign this feature to a custom button. For me, I personally don't use the C1 button on my A7 III for anything at the moment, so I'll go ahead and go into the settings and assign that to the new intervalometer function. This way I can quickly access the intervalometer feature without having to hop into the menu each time I want to switch to or away from it. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about what's included in this new menu and what each of these options do. Interval shooting sets whether to perform interval shooting, on or off. When this is on, the usage of the shutter button will begin the shooting start time and then subsequently begin your time-lapse capture. When this is off, the usage of your camera returns to normal. Shooting start time sets the time from when you press the shutter button to when interval shooting starts, and this can be ranged anywhere between 1 second to 99 minutes and 59 seconds. This does exactly what it sounds like. This is where you can set how long of a delay you'd like to set from when you press the shutter button to when the camera actually starts capturing the time lapse. You'd want to set this to at least a few seconds because when you first press that shutter button, you're going to shake the camera, even if it's just a little bit, and that will cause your first image to potentially be slightly blurry. Additionally, you could set this up to like an hour out in case you're setting it up to capture a specific time of the day, like let's say a sunset or a sunrise. But if you can set it up ahead of time, you just have to come back later and press that shutter button as opposed to, oh no, the sunset is happening, let me fidget with options, and then you're like, losing, precious minutes of your time lapse. Shooting interval. This sets the shooting interval, the time from when one exposure starts to when the next exposure starts. Now, this can be anywhere between 1 to 60 seconds, but do note that this means that no exposure during the time lapse can be greater than a minute long. And then after that, you'll be confronted with number of shots, and this is kind of self-explanatory. This is how many number of shots do you want during this interval, during this entire time-lapse capture, which can be anywhere between 1 shot to 9,999 shots. Now let's take a break away from the settings here and discuss how you would control your time-lapse intervalometer. Like, let's use this time-lapse that I'm recording right now as an example. First, let's figure out how long of a time-lapse you want. Personally, I wanted this time-lapse to be about 10 seconds long, and I edit and export my videos in 24 frames per second. So if I multiply the 10 seconds I want the time-lapse to be by the 24 frames per second, I get 240 frames. That is going to be the number for my number of shots. Next, we need to figure out what shooting interval we want to use. Well, I know the sun's gonna set in about 30 minutes, and I need 240 frames. So if we take 30 minutes and multiply it by 60, so we can work in seconds, that gives us 1,800 seconds until the sun sets. And if we take that 1,800 seconds and divide it among the 240 frames we need to capture, we get about 7.5 seconds per frame. So that's gonna be our shooting interval. Every 7 seconds, we're gonna take one picture. Finally, I'm not the most experienced in time-lapse photography, so to make things simple, I'm going to shoot my time-lapse in the program auto mode. So that way the camera can figure out how to expose it, because if I did it, I'd probably royally screw it up. Okay, back to the menu settings. Next is AE tracking sensitivity. Now this sets the tracking sensitivity of the auto exposure against the change in luminance during interval shooting. If you select low, exposure changes during the interval shooting will be smoother. You have the option of choosing low, mid, or high. If you're shooting something gradual like a sunrise or sunset, I would recommend selecting low. Next, we have silent shooting in interval. This sets whether or not you want to perform silent shooting during the interval shooting, and there's two choices, on or off, and this is exactly what it sounds like. And this is useful in many situations where you might not want the noise of the shutter going off every 7 seconds. Let's say, for example, a wedding, or even, heck, shooting this video right now, that'd probably be really annoying if every 7 seconds during this video you just hear click, click, click. Now, the next one is shooting interval priority. Sets whether or not you want to prioritize the shooting interval when the exposure mode is program or aperture priority. And so how this works is if it's on, you're going to say, I want to prioritize my shooting interval. So if I said every 7 seconds I want one picture, your program auto won't push past a 7-second exposure, no matter how dark it gets. If you turn this off, your camera's gonna take control of the exposure, and maybe if it gets dark enough, it'll say, hey, I need to do a 30-second exposure. It'll turn your shooting interval, you know, you set it at 7 seconds, it'll push it past 7 seconds. It'll start shooting it at 30-second intervals. So the pro to this is, of course, the camera will be like, hey, it's too dark, we need more light. It'll automatically compensate by pushing the exposure, the shutter speed up to 20, 30, 40, however long past your shooting interval. The downside to this is now if the camera is saying, hey, we need 30 seconds to expose per picture, and you had it originally set at every 7 seconds take a picture, of course your time lapse is going to take longer to finish because you're still trying to hit a preset number of shots. So with all of these settings put together, you can finally get time lapses straight out of your camera without having to buy an intervalometer. This has been a long time coming. Sony used to have kind of an app store within their cameras that had a time-lapse app, which I used to own on my A7R II. But after a firmware update, they patched it out. That's because people use that as a way to mod their Sony cameras, and Sony didn't like that. But now, once more, we can take convenient time lapses straight out of the camera. Here's a few neat things I've learned about this new intervalometer feature. You know what's really cool about this update? Sony lets you play back your time-lapse photo series as if it were a video right in the camera. However, it won't let you export it as a video. You'll still have to put it together on the computer in a program like Photoshop like I did. But being able to basically chimp your time lapses is pretty amazing. In the past, the only way you could check how your time lapse looks is you start just scrolling your scroll wheel as fast as you could through your photo preview. And this is the equivalent of basically being a kid flipping through a post-it note flip book. But now you can just hit play and it'll play back your time lapse as if it were a video. Additionally, if you want to stop your time lapse mid-time lapse, no problem. Just press the shutter button while it's in progress and it will simply stop right there. No hassle. And if you leave it to be and it runs its full course, when it's done with the time lapse, the camera will simply return to standby mode. This is nice because it helps reduce the amount of battery usage to a minimum until you come back to your camera. Okay, so that was a quick overview of the firmware that brought back the intervalometer, and that's it for this one, ladies and gents. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a thumbs up. It really helps me know what kind of content y'all are looking for. Down in the comment section down below, let me know what you think of this new time-lapse feature. Are you gonna use it, or are you gonna stick with your external intervalometer? I'm curious as to why or why not. And if you guys would like to see more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and don't forget to ring that notification bell to be alerted when a new video is released. All right, guys, as always, I'll see you in the next one.